And then move on to this very disturbing issue of a group of people who woke up one fine Friday morning, decided that they were declaring their day, and so blocked major roads, got travelers stranded, and also broke into an armory of a police station. Not only detained the commander, but also got some other police officers. Well, you know the story too well. This unfolded, and I guess over the weekend, we've gotten a lot of information and a lot of understanding as to the operations of the group, or groups, as we now know, and government response as well. Let me start with you, because you chair the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. There's a history to this, where we are today with this group. What's your understanding of how we've tried to deal with them in the past? For the public, really, it's the prosecution that a lot of people were following, but we know that we haven't successfully done that as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Mamavi. The constitution of the land allows for fundamental freedoms. And if people who are caught up in certain actions and events that the security services perceive to be untoward, the right place to send them is the law courts. One of our major challenges has been adducing evidence in court to enforce and to strengthen the claim by the security services about the actions of these people. I must admit that our joy, and me in person, is our recent admission and support from the House of Chiefs. And in this country, we all believe that, and we know that the custodians of our land, as far from the state authority of government, are our chiefs. So we pay a lot of respect and homage to them. And I'm glad that they are speaking to this issue now. Their voice is being heard, and that they do not support any group in their intentions. By that, I come to a conclusion that the acts of indiscipline by those people are purely criminal, and they need to be arranged before courts.
Isn't that how we've seen it from the beginning? Haven't we seen that it was a criminal act from the very beginning, as we've been trying to deal with it? Did we have to get to this point where some chiefs are disassociating and condemning the act before we realize that this is a purely criminal act?
Mamavi, the point is this. Yes, we have seen it as a criminal act, but as you may know, our law courts only dwell on proof. And you can only prove when you have proper evidence. In this era, we have these criminals walking into a police station, appropriating a police vehicle, breaking into cells, releasing inmates in there, appropriating a district assembly vehicle, breaking into an armory, appropriating arms. There can never be any description than to get this positive evidence. Going beyond all these appropriations and attacking a divisional police officer and his driver in an act, this can never be described in any form. And the right penal measures ought to follow to serve as a deterrent to the many that I know in my own observation support these acts and embolden those persons who went on that unfortunate criminal vendetta.
Did you just say that you know persons who support these groups?
I said my personal observation. I keep them as an observation because this is a very dangerous behavior in trying to destabilize our state.
Okay, and these are known people?
Mamavi, it is critical. I share with who I have to share with. Some of these things are classified. You cannot just speak. Let me say this.
I appreciate that, but what you're saying is also quite serious. So, if this is personal information to you, are you giving it to the security agency so that they can deal with the matter? As you've seen, almost everybody's disassociating themselves from the group, and everybody wants them dealt with.
I'm glad. If you follow my narrative, you could see I'm choosing my words advisedly, because I know we're going through processes, and the processes we are going through demands that you need to exhaust the entire process before you become conclusive. So I am very much particular. Based on the dispensations we live in, you ought not to lay blame, but we always say comments are free. And so to garnish my evidence that I have and what we have all seen by virtue of what you just demonstrated to us, going to vandalize a police station, it's a criminal offense. By damaging property of state, it's a criminal offense. And so those I can speak to, because I'm not the only person observing them. As your cameras have captured them for us, these are pure criminal exercise that we need to all condemn. And so I am stating it in this light.
Okay. Alasan Siene, we've been here before where we've arrested, showcased, this whole, made it like a spectacle, really. And then we haven't reached anywhere with it. How do we give confidence to the people that this matter is truly being dealt with?
Well, I think that this is another issue that I expect all of us to be very worried about. We must be disturbed as a people that acts like this, are taking place, in our part of the country. We have remained an oasis of peace for a very long time within the, West African sub-region. And, if you know or follow the history of other countries around us, and their instability. Things like this, were noticed at the beginning of those, countries that are in turmoil today around us. And that is why we mustn't take this lightly. I've listened to a number of security experts, and I am not an expert in that area, but some of the, things they say make a lot of sense. And they put the blame squarely on people who are in charge of our state security at this time. And you wonder what level of intelligence was gathered before the incident that took place over the weekend took place, and how they dealt with the intelligence that they gathered, and how they were not, how they were not able to diffuse these acts. A major highway such as the one that was blocked for many hours before security could show up is simply unacceptable in an area where things like this have been occurring every now and then, and the reaction even afterwards hasn't been that encouraging. And I'm talking about the observations that I have listened to being made by a number of security experts on this matter. And again, if you look at how we have dealt with the people who have been related to this matter in the past and got arrested, it doesn't look as if the nation is updated adequately on how they are handled and treated. And so sometimes, I said it on another platform, when you allow that vacuum and people do not know what is happening to the elders or the leaders that you picked up, and maybe all they find is that they are back with them and living with them and perhaps still encouraging them, the disinformation that can go along with that attitude could also just be that state authorities support us. And there are some big, our system, they may start telling these young people, this very, gullible people that, look, you see, they took us to Accra and brought us back. We tell you big people, are even in support of this thing that we are doing. And that is why nothing is happening. Because the nation has not taken it upon itself to update citizens on how, they are dealt with and to serve as deterrent so that others will not want to emulate their example or even join their movement. So I am particularly not happy about the way we have handled information around the people that we have arrested in the past connected with this group. I do not preach or promote high-handedness in dealing with this issue, but I think that as much as possible, we must not allow information gaps that can be exploited to further, encourage the activities of these people. Now, I've also listened to other conspiracy theories, and I've listened to the security experts like Professor Mr. and others, and they don't think we must dismiss some of these, conspiracy theories. The fact that we are in an election year and anything is possible should give us the reason not to dismiss, all the conspiracy theories that we are hearing as to whether this is a ploy, to make the place ungovernable, so that one way or the other it will inure to the benefit of a political party, either in government or in opposition. These are all things that we should not dismiss lightly without proper investigation, and interrogation. So I have a lot of confidence in our professionals who are still in the security, agencies. And I am hoping and counting on them to put the interest of the nation above any sectional interest, and perhaps come with information that we can all work with and rely upon, and which will also lead to dealing with this threat, whether it is whether it is politically motivated or it is actually, fairly, pushed by this secessionist group. Now, the issue of government position on this has also come up. We have not really, since this incidents happened over the weekend, had government position on this. I mean, I've heard, a low-ranking officer describe them as rebels. I mean, how did that, designation come about? Because these are security, labels, and you just don't label a group of thugs, with any sort of labeling, without proper consideration. What level of intelligence led to these people being labeled as, rebels? So I would want some people high up in government, like the Minister for Defense, like the President himself, addressing the nation on this matter, because this is as critical as COVID was, in my view, because it has the tendency of also destabilizing this country and, threatening our democracy and the experiment that we have been working with since Dr. Nkrumah ensured that this country came together as a unitary state. So it is that critical that we need to hear from our president, our commander-in-chief, tell us exactly what they know about it. And they may not give us in details how they intend to deal with it, but leave us with an assurance that, you have a handle on this matter.
We heard from the information minister over the weekend. You want to hear same from the president? What difference will that make?
You see, I'm saying that during COVID, we used to hear from the president and we still heard from the information minister. And I'm saying, just as COVID was threatening, our life and, the security and our peace as a people, we should not consider this threat too light. And that is why I think the commander-in-chief, it's not too much to ask of him to address the nation and let us understand what is at stake, and perhaps give us the assurance that it is not going to affect our election. You see, we are getting close to an election, and there are already, tension related to elections wherever elections take place, especially in this part of the world. And that is why we must not, allow this to fester, so that people exploit it during the election period and the tension that it comes with.
Okay. Let me come to you, Mr. Acheampong. You seem to suggest, when you were talking earlier, that with the present actions in terms of attacking the police station, detaining some policemen, we now have something to prosecute them with, something that would nail them. But I was thinking, the fact that we already knew they were recruiting, we knew they were training, we had things that we still could use against them. Would this, in terms of the attack of a police station, the kind of damage that they've caused, does it carry enough to nail these guys? Just that?
No, I can say that enough evidence has been gathered. And this evidence, I know that prosecution, state prosecution, will win the day in court. The reasons are that when such actions break and the ingredients are put together, the arbiter is the court. He decides. Unfortunately, if the court do not admit the evidence that you bring forth as evidence that the court can stand on to take certain actions, the court will not do so. I believe, and I know from basic knowledge, that first and foremost, getting into the police station and breaking into the police station unlawfully is an offense. Appropriating state property, breaking into the armory, attacking a serving police officer, not the least, but a divisional officer and his driver, appropriating a district assembly vehicle. These are not just facts. That is why I'm confident to call them criminals. These are criminals. The level of criminality will be determined by the courts. But everything that I have measured from their action since Friday is criminality. And let me further state that this has been the challenge when you are in the saddle managing affairs. You talked about how in the past they've been arrested, sent to court, and they've been allowed to go home. And other commentators are saying same. The reasons are simple, as I just described. If the evidence you have is not good enough, the courts will free them. And then the same...
But that's not our fault, is it? Because you do the whole show and you make us believe that you have a strong case against them. That's what we'll believe in.
So once you pick up intelligence, you need to wait, monitor, and ensure that the intelligence you pick was true. You can only affirm the intelligence and question the characters based on further actions. And as we speak, their actions is known to everybody. I don't call them terrorists because they are Ghanaians, but I call them criminals because they want to destabilize the state we all live in. And once anybody attempts that, you are, if I were their lawyer who will prosecute them, these are treasonable characters. And so they may be causing treason. I must admit that in these times, we had to take a long, calm wait to look and see their proper modus operandi. They have been operating in cells. They have been operating in several schemes and ways. However, if you just carry intelligence and you go to court with intelligence, you don't win the day. You can only get them in a tarrying mood, and they could just come up to say you are infringing on their fundamental freedoms and rights. But for them to be bold, to go and attack in action, I'm not a lawyer, but something I have read in criminology is about your intentions and the consequence, which may be your actions. They call the actus reus. I'm sure the actions they have undertaken at the moment all points to us having enough proof to nail them as criminals trying to destabilize this country, and we don't encourage such behavior. I'm gladdened that commentary is coming up, and my colleague Suyini, let's just listen to, have spoken to the matter. I expect more of my kind, and in the neighborhoods where these things are taking place, where they have been grouping and they have been training, we have representatives there. We are all colleagues. I congratulate my colleague Okujato. He's speaking about this matter. Let us all speak to this matter. I know that definitely the president will speak to this matter.
When?
But like Mavi,
when?
You know, Union knows.
Yeah, we know how he's been central because he's ECOWAS chair with the issue of Mali. And some people have said this one is really, this is at home. And we should have heard from him yesterday, for instance.
Mavi, we know that Mali has been a running matter way before he even was offered the opportunity to lead his peers in the sub-region. That does not come in. The most important thing is that his subordinate who speaks on his behalf when matters of this break, the Minister of Information, have come to speak to us. The other sector ministers, security ministers, hardly speak immediately. But I know you certainly hear from them as a matter of time pretty soon. And definitely, this matter will not go without the president's comment. The president will certainly speak. And if you listen to the Minister of Information, that is the president speaking through his subordinate. But we will still have our president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, address the country on these matters. Mind you, he is the chairperson to the National Security Council, the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. These are the men on ground who have been collecting, the professional men on ground who have been getting and feeding us with all the information. What I say are no matters that I know all of. I have to consult them and take from the professionals in there, the operatives, in either side, those from the intelligence side, those on the defense side, those on the preventive and prosecuting side. And this is where you have people from Homeland, these are the members of the Criminal Investigations Department of our police service, and the men who have been, and let me say this, and let me congratulate the military officers who over the years under this administration have taken the pain to tour the entirety of the Volta region, addressing these issues, meeting people in communities, organizing surgeries, meeting with people, addressing their concerns and issues, so that these people I call criminals who are on a criminal agenda will not overtake measures that do not lie in their mouth or in their space.
Okay, I'll just give you just 30 seconds for the next question that I'm going to ask. Alhassan Suhini, you first. There are issues that these people are also raising, apart from the vandalism, what we've described as criminal acts and how the state should deal with those. There's also the issue that they themselves are also raising. Is this a matter that we should pay attention to?
That is why, Mamabi, I say that I do not subscribe to absolute high-handedness in dealing with, this issue, because there are underlying causes that we must not also ignore. But what is significant, especially about what happened over the weekend, is the fact that we have not heard the leadership of this group claim, ownership of the acts of these guys over the weekend. Elsewhere, we will wait until the leadership, claim ownership and actually endorse what happened. And that is why some of the conspiracy theories must not be dismissed, because other groups, for other reasons, can operate under the guise of the known, group in that area. I have even seen articles attributed to some members of the group suggesting that they do not know these people who carried out some of the, criminal acts that has necessitated us having this discussion this morning. So it is important that we listen to we hear from the president. And your question is apt about the expectation of the president in the issues in Mali and how this issue in his own backyard can make it impossible for him to have any credibility to deal with the issues in Mali if he is not able to deal, creditably well with what is happening in his own backyard. So that is why it is important that he speaks with us.
Okay.
That is why it is important that the intelligence, points to a fact that this operations that we witnessed over the weekend was actually carried out by the Western Togolandese, because we haven't heard from their leadership claim these acts and endorse these acts. And that is why some of us are of the view that we should not dismiss those who think that this could be another group, for whatever reason, be it political or otherwise, operating, in their name, just to create, some panic. So it's important we get all our information right. And I think the best person to assure all of us of what is happening and how ready we are as a country to deal with it is the Commander-in-Chief.
I thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Acheampong, just, the last question that I asked in terms of should we be paying attention to the issues that they have raised?
Mamavi, that is a non-starter. If you go to the plebiscite results, and this is public knowledge, if you go to the plebiscite results, only two of the 7 or 8 constituencies decided to stay out of the union. And those areas are not even in question as to where the areas that the people are complaining of today. And so that is a non-starter.
Okay.
I don't want to listen to the conversation. The most important thing is that we should all see them as criminals, and the activities are criminal to the sanctity of the state. We can't encourage that. I will not encourage that in any way.
Okay. All right. I thank you also for your time.
I think that is quite dangerous. You see, that is why I said that, first of all, we must understand what happened over the weekend and whether the secessionists really were the operators. Because over the period, they have not, worked in this manner. They have not unleashed violence in this manner, especially to citizens. But they have raised critical issues of inclusion and governance that we must not dismiss. I mean, for example, the Eastern Corridor roads are issues that they have raised, which are issues of inclusion and governance and distribution of the national cake. Yes, even as we may describe some of their conduct as criminal, we must not allow, we must also deal with some of these issues that they can use to galvanize.
Okay. All right. Mr. Acheampong, yes, you're saying?
Let me say this. If the concerns is the matter of the Eastern Corridor routes, the first time these secessionist groups, so-called, were heard of was in 2007. John Kufuor's administration was 2007. The next time we heard of them was in 2017-2018. In the gap, Eastern Corridor Road has become a major issue. Were they not in town? Could they not raise their voices? I don't want to trivialize these matters. The point is, we've been observing and watching their activities, and it is time to speak and speak negatively to them. They go and organize surgeries in communities, preaching violence, that they will not allow the state to remain in peace. And we hear nobody speak about such despicable language. We all go about canvassing for support to ensure that we govern and lead our communities. People rise up and use language that are criminal, and nobody calls them to order, and nobody speaks against their activity.
Okay, gentlemen.
Honorable said. You see, I get your frustration, Honorable said. I get your frustration. But what I'm saying is that issues of inclusion and issues of governance, and I only use the Eastern Corridor route as an example of issues of governance that the people around that area have concerns with. So if you do not address those issues become reasons and fertile ground for miscreants to mobilize on, even if that was not their intention. If you do not address the issue of inclusion, for example, if you hear highly placed people refer to some members of that area as Togolese, I mean, these are all things.
Okay, gentlemen. Gentlemen, I guess this is one of those things that you'd hold your separate views and you will not agree on. Mr. Acheampong, you're saying something, but you're not audible.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Are you audible now, or
yes.
I've been muted by
no,
your console?
You are audible now, except that I just want to say that you still hold your separate views. You won't agree on this.
Not necessarily. In attending to matters of governance, Sweeney and I attest to the efforts of this government in affirming that the country takes funds, loans. We have just approved this parliament, the life of this 7th parliament, have approved monies to address these issues. These are attending to matters of governance.
Okay.
And so not matters that we are pushing away. That is the only way you can approach the subject.
Okay.
And I think it is.
So that's what I'm saying. I appreciate your concern. It is not just the issue of even approving funds to address some of these issues, but it also requires an engagement process that will let majority of the people feel included and their concerns, being addressed, so that they do not fall victim to whoever may want to recruit them for any criminal activity. So let us not dismiss the issues. The issues they are raising are germane, but they may not be enough for them to engage in the criminal acts that they are engaging in. And so it is important as you deal with those criminal tendencies, you also deal with the issues that they use to mobilize.
We have to go.
Example. And that's why
that is why
we have to wrap this one up, and we could go on and on and on, and I know that you know it. But our guest on AM Talk, Seth Acheampong, Member of Parliament for Mpraeso, also chairs the Defence and Interior Committee. Alhassan Sihini is Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you for this discussion. Really grateful. And that's it for AM Talk.